if you ask our ancestor, like my grandparents, they always told you that ditch the fiat, buy gold, because gold is the only hard money and the safest bet. Like if you want to accept payment, put it in the one that's the hardest, because the Dutch gulden, yes, it's hard money, but it's a foreign money, and then it's being used for colonial power. And then the Indonesian money wasn't that great either, so you lose your purchasing power.
Welcome to Life with Bitcoin, where we delve into the human side of Bitcoin by chatting with one Bitcoiner at a time to discover their life stories, personal growth, and challenges through the lens of Bitcoin. I'm your host, Vivian Chang. Thanks for tuning in. Today, the guest who will be joining us is Dea Rezkitha. Dea Rezkitha is an Indonesian Bitcoin educator and podcast host. Works on Kelas Bitcoin, an educational platform that caters to an Indonesian-based audience with various resources, including articles, videos, and in-person meetups. She discusses topics around money, business, finance, and Bitcoin. Furthermore, Dea is the podcaster for My Bitcoin Story, a community master for Fedi, the co-founder of Indonesian Bitcoin community, and the organizer of the Indonesian Bitcoin Conference. Welcome, Dea. You have lots of titles.
I know. Thank you for having me, Vivian. I just realized that, like, oh my God.
This is what happens when you work in this industry for like 2+ years, I guess. Everyone has a million titles, doing a million things for the communities, and that's a good thing. So thanks for joining us. And I want to start with your personal journey with Bitcoin. What were you doing before you discovered Bitcoin? How was it like for you?
I actually discovered Bitcoin. The first time I encountered Bitcoin was in 2013.
That's early.
That was quite early, and it was in the middle of nowhere. I was doing a backpacking trip in Southeast Asia, and I was in Laos. From all of the country, I was in Laos, and then in Laos, there's a bar that accepted Bitcoin, and I thought that was very interesting. But that's as far as I know back then. But then. Fast forward in 2016, I started a business, like a retreat organizing business, and I need to find a way to accept money from abroad, because we have clients from all over the world that wants to come to Bali, and then maybe doing a company retreat or yoga retreat, and sometimes I need to accept payment from abroad, and my only option at that time was either bank transfer or PayPal, and I found it very hard to. I mean, it's take a long time to deposit to my account, and then there's so much fees, right? And then I heard again about this Bitcoin. Actually, like, you can transfer money using Bitcoin, and it's quite cheap. So that's when I start to learn about Bitcoin. I went to a co-working space, and then there is a session about what is Bitcoin, and then they have a Bitcoin ATM downstairs, and that's the first time I bought my Bitcoin, like, through Bitcoin ATM. That was quite fun. But I mean, I used my first encounter with Bitcoin, or like how I use it, is to accept payment from abroad. Of course, it was a bit hard to convince client to pay me in Bitcoin, but there are some tech enthusiast client who wants to try it out, and then it was really cool experience, because I did like an A/B testing with two of my clients, one who paid me in PayPal and one who paid me in Bitcoin. The one who paid me in PayPal, it takes 10 days for the money to transfer to my account. The one who paid me in Bitcoin, we just do a Skype call, and then we decided on the rate. He was in Korea, I was in Indonesia. We decided what Bitcoin rate that we are going to use, and then he sent the money, I receive it. I went to an OTC, cash it out. Everything took less than 30 minutes, I guess, from the whole process. So I think that was
To receive payment in Bitcoin or the client's idea?
it was actually my idea. I just want to test it out because, for them, it doesn't really matter to pay me with bank transfer or PayPal. But for me, it's kind of hurtful for my business because every time they pay me in PayPal, I lose at least 5 to 6% from the conversion, from also the from the fees, and that's quite a lot of margin, to lose. So that's why I want to convince my client to pay me in Bitcoin because, especially if you time it correctly, like if you time it during the bull run, you will get more profit, right? Like, I mean, in terms of someone pay you in Bitcoin, and then when the price goes up, you just take the principal. You kind of like stacking SAT in that way through payment from clients.
How much did you know about Bitcoin back then to actually come to the conclusion that I'm going to ask for Bitcoin from my clients just to test it out?
I started using that payment in 2016, so like less than 7 years ago. I found very fortunate that the way I understand about Bitcoin, I went to a class first. Like there is a class conducted in this co-working space, and the guy who is now become one of my friends has teach me about what is Bitcoin, how it's used for transaction, how it works. He even teach us about how to custody your Bitcoin in your private wallet, like how you write your seed phrase. So that's I feel I kind of fortunate that I learned the basic first, and then I decided to test it out with my client, and it's just fun. Like I guess both. A couple of clients that did that with me, like they are also curious, so we both want to learn together, like how we can do transferring this payment.
I can totally relate on the fees for PayPal. It's such a pain. I work with freelancers from all over the world, and sometimes they don't necessarily take Bitcoin or even stable coins, and then PayPal is basically the only thing they can get access to. And even for PayPal to take off like $5 to $15, that's like a significant amount of money for them.
Yeah.
This may not sound a lot in the US, it's like a cup of coffee, but it's in many parts of the world, it's very, very different. So you're from Indonesia. For most people, I suppose, and me, myself included, my impression for Indonesia is very much around Bali, around lots of digital nomads go there. And it's very, very tropical, hence the outfit today. So I wanted to gauge your experience in Indonesia and your knowledge. And I know that historically Indonesia has operated as a vast and diverse nation. And you shared with Robert Breedlove What is Money show, and you said there's over 17,000 islands and more than 700 languages spoken. It's a large population of 270 million people in Indonesia. How does the process work that led to the unification, especially regarding how governance was carried out across these distinctive regions, and how did Indonesia manage to create a sense of unity among so many diverse communities prior to become a united nation?
Let's say the border as it is, like how it become Indonesia, it's a legacy from colonialism. Right, like we were colonized by the Dutch for almost 3 centuries, and then around those areas there is Spain and Philippines. There's also Portuguese settlement as well, like in near the East Timor. There's also British. So the border, like how we call Indonesia, is somehow being set by those colonial treaty, like back in the day. But when it comes to like how it formed into nation, obviously it's very hard to combine all the countries together with so many different language. The founding father of Indonesia actually back in 1920s, before our independence, they decided that if we want to unify all of these tribes, all of these islands, different language, different type of ethnicity, we need to create something new. So they decided that instead of choosing like one language, they like maybe one language from the one of the island, they decided to invent a new language countries called Bahasa Indonesia. And I thought that was very interesting because like I think that makes it everyone needs to learn from zero, not just like favor from like just one island and then they will create tension, so everyone needs to learn the language. In 1945, actually Indonesia got its independence accidentally because the Dutch was colonialized Indonesia, and then after that, Japan took over, right? And during the World War II, Japan suddenly got bombed by the nuclear bomb in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the Japanese troop just fled the country, and then there is a vacuum of power. Actually, the young people of Indonesia kidnapped the founding father and then told him that you have to announce that we are, there's no one right now in the country, just claim our independence. And he actually doesn't want to do that because actually Indonesia was in the process of getting independence, like the Japanese is going to give Indonesia the independence, and he was part of it. And then the young people said, no, like we have to claim our own independence. So when there's no Japanese troop in Indonesia, so that Indonesia just came and then say like, we're an independent country. So that was a quite interesting story I found because it was done without a bloodbath, right? Like they claimed independence. If we want to relate that to money stories, as I mentioned, there was Dutch, there was Japan, there was Indonesia. After the independence, the troops, like the allies, which consists of the Dutch, British, and U.S. troops as well, want to take over Indonesia, and then like Indonesia fight back. During this time around, there's also like how do I say, like a struggle of power between money. So Indonesia actually during 1945 until 1950s, there are three different currency that is circulating in Indonesia. There's a Japanese gulden, which is like a money that was being issued by the Japanese troop. There is the Dutch gulden, which is being used for over centuries because the Dutch was colonized Indonesia. And then Indonesia decided to print their own money as well. So at that time, it was very interesting that people are, people need to navigate themselves with these three different currency. Obviously, the Dutch gulden is it's stronger than Indonesian rupiah. So a lot of people wants to own that. If you only accept Dutch gulden, you will be marked as a traitor by the nationalists. But if you're using Indonesian rupiah, you lose your purchasing power because it wasn't backed by like a gold or hard asset. I mean, it was a very weak currency. So the power dynamic happened and it was really interesting. And that's why if you ask our ancestor, like my grandparents, they always told you that ditch the fiat, buy gold because gold is the only hard money and the safest bet. Like if you want to accept payment, put it in the one that is the hardest because the Dutch gulden, yes, it's hard money, but it's a foreign money, and then it's being used for the colonial power. And then the Indonesian money wasn't that great either, so you lose your purchasing power. So yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting the reason why our ancestor or like our grandparents always told us to save in gold.
So tricky. Imagine as a individual trying to navigate between these currencies, like how does it even work? Do they have a certain exchange rate to each other, just like how you deal with foreign currencies, or they have a specific way of transacting through each other?
Back in the day, the Indonesian money is called ori. So the Indonesian central, there was actually two central bank at that time. There is still a Dutch controlled central bank, and then there's also a central bank that is established by Indonesia, like it's called the Bank Negara Indonesia. So the central bank from Indonesia decided to print what they called ori, and it's actually not backed by gold, but they create like a fixed exchange rate, and the exchange rate was 2 rupiah is equal to 1 gram of gold. Yeah, the gulden was actually backed by silver, but like the Indonesian rupiah is not backed by anything. They just create this fixed exchange rate. But after I think after less than a year after they issued this ori, the Indonesian money, to like one let's say 1 gram of gold was set to 2 rupiah, and then now 1 gram of gold was equivalent to 500. So that was like less than a year. That's how much the money depreciate. And it's continued like that. Indonesia faced a hardship in the 60s because I think it was like a mismanagement as well. And we also have a war debt to the Dutch that we have to pay. And then instead of like producing, the government decided to print a lot of money. So then in 1960s, there actually more than 1,000% inflation. So there was like hyperinflation. It was devastated for a lot of people. And then there's also second inflation in 1998 after the Asia crisis. So right now, like I mentioned that back in the day, the money was using a fixed exchange rate between rupiah and then 1 gram of gold. So it was like 1 gram of gold equal to 2 rupiah. Right now in Indonesia, 1 gram of gold is equal to 900,000 rupiah. That's how much the
Yeah, because 1 gram equal to that if this stick to the exchange rate, then it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong because a gram of gold, it's quite expensive. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, like that's to just show, like you cannot use a fixed exchange rate without any underlying. And then if the government decided to continue printing money, that will show in the price. They will really show like with the difference of with the hard money. And
Right.
I mean, at that time, people using gold as a hard money. At our current age, we can see how much the money is depreciate if we also compare it to Bitcoin, right? Like that's the hardest money ever. And yeah, like how much 13 years or no, 15 years has showed us the like how much our fiat money is actually depreciating.
Fascinating. And I heard you share this last year saying that there's still 60% of people in Indonesia that are unbanked. I guess after years passed, this percentage hasn't changed to a drastic degree. So how people interact with money in Indonesia on a daily basis? Like do they use physical cash, mobile payment? How do they interact with money?
Of course, cash is still the most preferable mode of payment, right? The reason is simple. We have 17,000 islands. There's like 200 million people who live in these islands. And if you want to open a bank account, you have to go to the bank branch, right? And to create a bank branch, meaning you need to create an infrastructure. You need to also distribute the cash. I know that because my sister, she's a doctor, and then as a doctor in Indonesia, you need to serve and I think like doing some kind of internship in different islands in Indonesia, usually like a remote island, and the government needs to send someone to every island with a boat to deliver the money, to deliver the cash. That's how it works in Indonesia. Right now, it's getting much better with the growth of like fintech. So we have, we have different apps that allow us to do like payments. We have our equivalent to Uber. We call it Gojek, and they have their own like a e-wallet. So a lot of people are actually using that at the moment because it's very easy to set up. You don't need to go to a Gojek branch. Like you just download in your app. But it still has limitation, right? Like you cannot, with that kind of payment, you still need to have internet access. Not all of this island has good internet coverage. So it's still, I guess, say like cash is still the biggest mode of payment. And then the secondary is this e-wallet. And recently as well, the government decided to create an integrated QR system payment for all the e-wallet and also mobile banking. So they want to push more and more people to be cashless or at least to have an alternative than cash. So this QRIS payment, you can find it in the in major islands in Indonesia. So you can, it's almost the same like how it works with the Bitcoin Lightning transaction, where you can just scan the QR code and then you just pay with whatever wallet that you have, with your mobile banking or your own e-wallet.
The whole e-payment system is a slippery slope to CBDCs, eh?
Exactly.
Is that what they're
it's
brewing?
It's a precursor of CBDC for sure. That's the problem, right? I won't lie that it is convenience to have this QR payment system. It's not the same like in the US, where everyone have card, like everyone has credit card. Card is the way you pay. It's very hard for Indonesian to get a credit card. Because you need to have a certain level of income, and then most people earn less than $200 a month, so it's very hard for them to get a credit card. But talking about the QR system, obviously, yes, there's a convenience, but there's also what is it called? Like things that, like a pros and cons, like the things that you will giving up for. Things that you will giving up for that convenience is actually your privacy, right? Like every time, I know this for a fact that if you're using this QR system, you are actually being tracked, like where you are, what type of products that you buy. I mean, you are being tracked anyway when you're using credit card, but now you get more data. Like through the mobile app, you can. The government or even the company can gather more data about you, and then when it's transitioned to like using a CBDC, for example, in the at the Indonesia CBDC white paper, they say that they're going to collect granular data, like a very small data that they will take and then make it's going to be in your record, right? So that's very concerning, because the good thing about cash is that you doing a transaction, you give me goods or service, I pay that with cash, and then that's it. You don't need to know who am I, who are the people that I'm hanging out with, what are the products that I just bought recently. Like you don't need to know about that. You just like with the cash, everything will be settled immediately, and that's also like how Bitcoin works, right? Like you just like Bitcoin is a digital cash. So I found the reason why there is this war with the cash is because with cash, government cannot take too much data about us, but with digital payment like CBDC, then they will know all of everything about us.
I probably grew up in the last decade of using cash in China, and even when I went back in 2019, they refused to take cash anymore. Like you can go to a merchant and they would just simply not take your cash because they don't have changes. I tend to miss the era of cash because there's a real pain associated to handing over the physical money to the merchant. Like you're more careful with your spending versus when you're on mobile or when you're dealing with digital money, and that's Bitcoin included, you're way less sensitive when it comes to how much you're spending and how much you're saving, because you don't see stack of bills lying around. Yeah, so you definitely there's certain perks for the cash economy for sure. And considering the historical significance of trade routes and currency exchanges in Indonesia, how has these traditional influences impact the way Indonesians perceive digital currencies like Bitcoin today, or even e-cash?
Truth to be honest, everyone knows that in Indonesia our currency is weak because with all this major inflation that happened in the past, right? So most Indonesian will prefer to save in dollar or save in gold, or because they know that the currency is weak, they need to hedge it against inflation. So that's why property is very popular, gold is very popular, collecting dollars is very popular. And then now I see that in the young community, Bitcoin is one of the ways for them to hedge against inflation. Obviously, when it comes to the whole nation, it's very small number. Like, I mean, I would say, if I'm not mistaken, I read maybe that's around like 5% of the population who own, Bitcoin or other type of crypto in general. But it's a growing trend, and I think it's here to stay. So if you ask like how Indonesia perceive, like different type of currency and like how they going to change the currency, I guess Indonesian people, like any other Southeast Asian country, are very pragmatic and they are very opportunistic. So they will still use the money that is being mandated and then being accepted around, which is like our own fiat or fiat. But if there is an opportunity, obviously they want to hold a much harder money.
There's so much interesting things to talk about Indonesia because it's such a unique place. Geographically, it's very interesting, and the combination of different islands make it very diverse as well. And the rich history with the fusion of different cultures, either voluntarily or involuntarily, there's a lot of fusion in culture, and then you also have religion influence.
Yeah, Hinduism. Actually, in Indonesia, we are the world's largest Muslim population. There's a lot of Muslim in Indonesia. The Hindu is only exists majority in one island, which is Bali. but historically, historically there's a lot of Hindu and Buddhist kingdom in Indonesia back in 3-4 centuries. The biggest kingdom was called Majapahit, who conquer up until Thailand and all this like Malaysia area. So that's like one of the big kingdom that was in Indonesia. But I think in the maybe 14th century, then the Islam came to Indonesia through the traders from Arab, from India, and that's how Islam was spread. So if you look into geographically, Indonesia is a bit divided. So like there's like a one island Bali in the middle. If you go from west of Bali, mostly are Muslim, and if you go east to Bali, mostly are Christian.
Oh, interesting. Do you see an increase or decrease of the newer generation clinging onto religious beliefs in general?
There are more and more people who are more become religious in Indonesia. I guess it's also because of internet, right? Like back in the day, you get your let's say religion education from your family, and now with internet you can get many type of download from a platform, like even from the content creator, like a religious content creator as well. I would say it's become a bit tricky. That makes it become more conservative, I guess, in their own religious mindset. Maybe Muslim also, Hindu, and also in Christian. In the past, in early 2000, after the Asia financial crisis, it's getting better because back in the day, there's also a lot of war happening, like let's say a religious war between Muslim and Christian, between Christian and between other, it's like almost like it was an unstable time that time. So right now, I would say it's more peaceful, but yeah. It's really influenced I guess in Southeast Asia, religion is very important for like among in the society. Maybe it's a bit different from let's say in the Western countries. So it's become part of their identity. So yeah, in Indonesia, the influence is there.
The trend in Western society is that there are more and more people that are less religious, and I wonder why this is the case for Indonesia. Like, do you have a hypothesis of why this is the case of young generations clinging onto religious beliefs? Do you think there's any economical reasons behind this?
Just draw from my own experience. I think young generation, they like to belong to a certain group, right? And in like in public school, there is a growing interest for, I would say, like a political organization that is religious based to start finding their, let's say, candidates or not candidates, but like followers early, like even since they are young. So when I was in high school, for example, like you can get scholarship if you are part of like religious activities, and then this religious activity is being sponsored by like a political movement, and they are really like targeting like maybe someone who is not financially capable, but like having a really good grades in school. So because in the end, like these people will then be part of the party, be part of like the political movement. Indonesia was a bit interesting. Like I said, it was majority Muslim population, but the government, it tried its best that it's not focusing in one religion per se. Like like in the constitution, it's not talking about. It's not like we are not using a Sharia law. We are using the constitution that include like all of different religion. But even since the beginning, I think even before Indonesia got its independence, all this religious group want to be part of the government, right? Like they want to change the constitution. They want to make it more Sharia based. So that's I think this is like a power struggle since the very beginning. But when it comes to young generation right now, I would say a lot of them come from social pressure, from like social environment as well.
Indonesia also holds a very unique geographic position and with lots of islands. At least from my perspective, Bali in Indonesia, I can see some similarities between Bali and Madeira in Portugal and then Prospera in Honduras. And then both of them are already on the front line of Bitcoin adoption. And given Indonesia's geographic and its reputation as a tourism destination for a lot of digital nomads as well, do you think Indonesia can potentially have a similar path as these two places, or just even Bali as a small test ground to adopt Bitcoin and take it further?
14 until 2019, I would say Bali was the Bitcoin island. There are so many businesses that accepted Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoin signed, Bitcoin accepted here, and that's also the reason why in 2016 I decided I'm going to start accepting payment in Bitcoin, because everyone in Bali is doing it. There is even a directory, a website called Bit Island, where you can just right now we have BTC Map. Back in the day, we don't have BTC Map. So you have this directory, a local directory that will show you what are the hotel that accept Bitcoin, restaurants, cafe, even spa, scooters lesson. There's so many of them. But I would say at that time, we Bali tried to accept Bitcoin quite early when there's no lightning transaction. So everything is done by on chain. It was fun when there's no, if the network is not congested. But I remember in 2017, during the block size war, and when the network is getting more and more expensive, people suddenly stop using it, because now it's become very expensive. Like, you don't want to pay $5 fee for $5 burger. so that's when the decline happened. But I think the biggest challenge was government regulation. In 2019, the government decided to ban Bitcoin payment and any kind of payment that accept money outside of rupiah. So if you're a business, and then if you're accepting dollar, then you will get fined. And then if you're accepting euro, you will get fined. If you're accepting Bitcoin, you get fined. The government tried to make it very clear. I guess it's also they are trying to make sure that there is a demand on rupiah, because like I mentioned, like rupiah is one of the weakest currency considered to be in the world. So if people start using or demanding currency outside of rupiah, that will be very much weaken the rupiah position. So in that sense, I understand why the government is doing that. But it's also like when you already start creating a policy, it's hard to take it back. It's hard to roll back than adding more stuff, right? So I think the current challenge in Indonesia is that unless if we have, in my personal opinion, if we have applications such as like Strike or Pouch or this type of payment that just use Bitcoin as a way to transfer the value, and then at the end, the merchant will accept it in their own fiat currency. Maybe that's when Bitcoin can be more accepted in Indonesia. At the moment, even though it's not accepted as payment, but Bitcoin is accepted as an asset. So the government is actually promoting that in Bitcoin is considered one of a commodity, and then being regulated under the commodity what is it called? Like a department. So yeah, like is it? I mean, I would say that at the moment, what Indonesia really needs is for sure to hedge against inflation. So, making Bitcoin as a store of value at first, it's actually a good step to go. Hopefully, though, like, this is also one of the reasons why we are doing the Indonesia Bitcoin Conference. We are actually also inviting regulators to come to our conference so then they can understand like what exactly the use case that is being used in Philippines, in Vietnam, in Thailand, or neighboring countries as well. So it will hopefully like it will give a different view, and also opening up like different type of opportunities, because at the moment most of what government knows, and yeah, there are like cases like corruption cases where the corruptor launder the money in an exchange and then they save it in Bitcoin, and now like Bitcoin become scrutinized as a way to do money laundering.
Of course they do that.
So there is a lot of work to do in terms of changing the image. If I want to send you, Vivian, Bitcoin, it's still permittable. Like I can sending asset. It's not illegal in Indonesia. So it's now all about make the government understand what is it for, what is it used for, what is the benefit actually if we are start accepting Bitcoin, and what is the transition look like.
And let's talk about the Indonesia Bitcoin Conference. This is the third year you're doing this, and this is the first physical in-person conference. So congratulations! I'm sure it's a lot different than have an online only conference to organize as an organizer. So what can we expect this year that's more than the previous year's conferences?
Obviously, last year was online and now it's in person, so you get to meet the people finally in person. No, I mean I'm really excited for the conference itself. My goal is basically just to come and then hang out and then just get that real in-person connection, because we've been stuck in the Twitter worlds for so long. It become like an echo chamber. It's very nice if we can just meet the people directly, and just to see the people how they are learning things that you never learned before. That's basically why I'm currently organizing this conference, because I've been to several Bitcoin conference and I found it very fun to be among people who thinks like you, and then understand like your point of view. So just getting together and then like making friends, it's a good way to go. Like conference is the way. And what are you going to expect at the conference? Since connection is my main primarily thing, so obviously we will have a lot of it's like a social hour or networking event, after party, just for you just to hang out. Like where's the best place to hang out? Like Bali with Bitcoin, maybe have some coconut, watch sunset. So we will have a lot of like social hour. There will be, of course, like panels and discussion. We're also going to have workshops. There's a bunch of exhibition with several of our sponsor who's going to open their booths and do like some interactive games. One thing that is quite unique in this conference, as you know, Bali is very popular with their traditional art. So we are actually working together with like a art group performers to create like a Bitcoin art shows that actually combine the traditional art and also the philosophy of Bitcoin, and then we are going to merge together and then showcase as a show, as a art show. So this is something that I'm quite excited because I don't think we have this in other conferences. So this is what makes it different. There's a lot of potential in Lightning Network, right? And I also feel that in Indonesia, there are a lot of good developer out there who might be benefited if we create an app that can integrate that allow in Lightning Network integration. So we are currently organizing a Lightning Hackathon. The hackathon will start in October 7th. The purpose is that everyone can join and then they can create Lightning Network apps. We got a very generous sponsor from Human Rights Foundation and Fulgur Venture. They sponsor, the total price is $10,000. So anyone who wants to build a Bitcoin apps for Indonesia and maybe relevant for Indonesian user as well, we can join this Lightning Hackathon. Yeah.
Wow, lots happening. And how is it different this year as an organizer to organize a physical Bitcoin conference? Like, what are some of the? I'm sure it's been quite a journey for you and change.
And I think like the challenge when I run the online conference is that everything is rely on the online platform itself. Let's say if the online platform lagging or there's problem during the call and I don't know, some technical problem,
You're sitting duck.
and then you're stuck, and that happened I think last conference, like we got to delay 30 minutes because there's some problems that we didn't see beforehand, that we didn't see when we were doing the testing, where I assume like when during the conference, of course, there will be many challenges, but you can improve. You can do like improvisation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a single point of failure. It's why we move away from centralization, right?
Yes.
You basically totally looking forward to the conference. You have a lot of great speakers this year as well that are showing up in person.
Yeah. We got Jack Dorsey, we got Alex Gladstein, we got Obi Nwosu from Fedi, we got Samson Mao, also an ex-minister of Indonesia, Gita Wirjawan, who is very Bitcoin enthusiast. He even had a podcast show and invited Safidin Amus to be part of his show. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like local Bitcoiners and also Bitcoiners from Southeast Asia. Yeah, I'm very excited for sure, and I mean, there will be like many topics that we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about like the Lightning Network and current development in the Bitcoin space. Like, we probably heard about Noster, and then also through Fedi, like, this Fedi Mint, like what is it? And then obviously people always like to learn about what's going on in the world right now, the economy situation, and what is the current development through the Bitcoin core. So there's like some of technical session, a lot of also like philosophical session, trying to make it like, for everyone. But I guess maybe also people are very interested to know about the current Bitcoin regulation update in Indonesia. If businesses wants to come and join and learn, we are also going to having session talk about mining, with the potential of Bitcoin mining in Indonesia. What are actually the potential in there? So there are a lot of to be discussed during the conference. The agenda will be coming up soon, but yeah, there's many good topic and good speakers line up.
I'm sure it's going to be a huge success, such a destination, and it's great to combine the two together. And can you teach me, on that note, how to say fix the money, fix the world in your language?
Perbaiki uang kita, perbaiki dunia.
Perbaiki uang
Kita.
kita.
So this means fix our money.
Yeah.
Perbaiki dunia.
Perbaiki dunia. Perbaiki uang kita.
Perbaiki dunia.
Perbaiki dunia. And I'm sure a lot of great things will happen for this conference. And kudos to you organizing this first ever physical Indonesia Bitcoin Conference. I'm sure you had a lot of great experience to draw from the past couple of years. And I understand it must have been a lot. So really well done. And I can't wait to see how the conference turned out. And Live with Bitcoin is also the official media partner of Indonesia Bitcoin Conference. Thanks for the opportunity. And if you use code Live with Bitcoin at checkout, you can actually get a 10% discount on the conference ticket. Thanks, Dea, for joining us today. How to stay close to your work?
Yeah, so if you guys want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Dea Rezkitha. It's DeaRezkitha. But I'm also right now on Nostr, so you can also find me at Dea Rezkitha at nostrplat.com. If you want to learn more about the conference, you can go to Indonesiabitcoinconference.com, and that's where you're going to buy the ticket, and you can use the code that Vivian just shared to get a discount. Yes.
So I'm hoping this episode can give everyone a little bit more idea. I know I've certainly learned a lot, and it's been great. Thanks for joining today. And if you like this content, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more stories from Bitcoiners around the world. I'm your host, Vivian Shane, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye. Thank you.